Wo Long Fallen Dynasty finally came out. It's currently at a mostly negative review state on Steam though. So what happened? Is the game crap, or is there something else people are really pissed about here? Welcome to my review of Wo Long. I'll be giving you a quick overview of the story gameplay, then we'll come right back here for my final thoughts, the good and the bad. Let's get started. Wo Long Fallen Dynasty takes place in a dark fantasy version of the world of the Three Kingdoms. 184 AD, later Han Dynasty China, the land is overcome by chaos and destruction. The imperial dynasty that prospered for many years is now about to collapse. Wo Long refers to a crouching dragon and also refers to a hero or person of greatness who is not yet known. This is the story of officers who will later become heroes during their unknown period, and also the story of a protagonist's rise from being a nobody. You play as a completely customizable mercenary who is thrown into the thick of things as demon invasions are occurring. Using swordplay and wizardry based on Chinese martial arts, you team up with heroes of the Three Kingdoms stories and fight back for your survival. Moving on to gameplay, it's very similar to both Nioh and Sekiro in terms of combat and progression. Let's start with combat. It's a 3D action RPG with a high pace of action. As you explore levels, you'll fight many different demons in human form and demonic forms. You have basic attacks, spirits, martial arts, range attacks, wizardry spells, and divine beast actions alongside your parry, defend, and dodge. Almost every action you take, besides the basic attacks, use up your spirit bar. Think of this as an ongoing struggle to maintain posture for you and your enemies. When you or they take damage, their bar goes negative. If it reaches the bottom threshold, they become stunned and are more susceptible to major damage. However, those strong actions take spirit. If you land basic parries or attack them successfully, your spirit gauge goes positive, allowing you to take even more actions and become less likely to become stunned yourself. Next, we'll talk about character growth. Just like any Souls-like, you gain experience through defeating enemies and using certain consumables. If you die, you have to get back to the area where you perished and defeat the monster who took you out, essentially getting revenge and securing your experience points back. At checkpoint flags, you can enter a menu to increase your stats. These stats are named after elements like wood, metal, and fire. They upgrade various aspects like HP, spirit game, elemental damage, and so on. Getting certain elemental thresholds unlock wizardry spells for you to use and equip at your leisure. Equipment is a huge part of Wo Long. You'll acquire many through basic enemies, bosses, quests, and treasure chests. There's around 13 different weapon types, as well as various armors like helmets, body armors, and accessories. All the different equipment belong to certain sets with a locked first skill, but the higher the rarity it is, the more random other skills can be found on them. And the last, story progression. This is a mission-based game where you will go through different chapters, which they call parts. In each part, it consists of different stages you can choose from. Some are story missions, while others are submissions, which you can farm. And that's Wo Long in a nutshell. There's a lot more mechanics I didn't delve into, but with what I summarized, hopefully you got a good idea of what this game is all about. So let's get right into my final thoughts, the good and the bad. Let me first address why this game has a widespread negative review status on Steam. It essentially boils down to the PC performance. Yeah, there's a lot of other nitpicks I saw, but this is primarily the reason I do agree. People who are using medium to high-end PCs are seeing a ton of problems. We're seeing tons of constant FPS drops, graphical glitches, for example, random flashing, tons of crashes, and very high CPU and GPU performance rates being reported here. I also played on PC via the Game Pass, so hooray, not for any extra cost, but yeah, I heard that the Game Pass version, because it comes from the Microsoft Store, actually does run better than the Steam one, but I don't know how much water that claim actually holds. So yeah, I was also getting a good amount of low crashes here and there, especially like after defeating a boss, going through a chapter. I am playing on completely low settings though. However, I'm also seeing major menu frame limit issues. For example, I set it on 60 FPS to be locked. In the menu, it seems like it kind of unlocks that, and every single time I go into a menu, my freaking GPU and my fan goes nuts. It's weird, and I don't like it, and I hope they fix that soon. But guess what? I think that is actually it for the major complaints. Yeah, to be honest, surprising, but this is a really nice game. Let's start with what's really good about it. The combat, it feels really smooth for all of the basic actions. I played the first Wo Long demo that came out a couple of months ago. That was a good first impression. However, there's a lot of things they needed to tweak that I feel like they really remedied and listened to the audience and upgraded it here. For example, the difficulty is now much more accessible. It's not the easiest game in the world. However, the biggest sort of change is they made the parrying window a lot more easier and forgiving. It took some time getting used to, but it has a really nice, interesting resource management in the form of that spirit bar. It is tough to get into, but it really makes sense having everything tied to this one mechanic. Essentially, it's pretty simple, but as you get further into the game, you can see how more complex it gets. Once again, it's all tied to it. It's kind of a push your luck mechanic, though magic in this game is infinite. Every single time you use a buff, a debuff, you throw out a fireball, your bar goes down, and if you happen to get hit when all of your your negative bar is there, you are the one susceptible to stun and damage. So I really like that push your luck mechanic. This game also has a little of a weird mechanic called the fortitude and rank system, which I didn't mention in the gameplay section, but basically how it works is every time you start a new chapter, a map, you go back to 0 rank and fortitude. Every enemy as you play along that has a certain rank in fortitude, which essentially makes it so you take more damage or less damage depending on how far you are to their rank. The more enemies you kill and the more bonfires you put up and checkpoints, and increases your fortitude, and that also unlocks the wizardry spells as you go along. So every map you play, it's kind of like a small little level up progression. And yeah, you do keep your basic level up, you keep all of your stats, but this is more of like a percentage thing. They don't want you running too far in and running, they want you to progress through each map. The map designs, as I've been seeing, are decent. Some of them are really hard to navigate. You don't really have a mini map. Instead, you have a very basic sort of fog of war-ish map where you just see little points of interest dots. I would say the colors of all the areas are very samey, so it's hard to go around. Similar environments until you get a little bit later on in the game, then you're going to be seeing some good greenery and variety, etc. I would say the camera, if I were to nitpick this, it's really bad sometimes. It auto locks after you hit an enemy, or you can lock yourself, and it gets really jumpy. You're moving all over the place, you're jumping, you're double jumping, enemies are going all over the place. It feels like you have to spam parry a lot of the times because it's so hard to see things, so many particles if you're playing with AI companions or with others. It's rough, but you do get used to it after a while. But I do have to say, it does not look good at first impressions how insanely janky it is. And yeah, with this being a sort of Nioh game, even though it is a Souls-like, it's a lot of grind. You have tons of skills, status effects, and wizardry to unlock. But that's these types of games. I expected it, and honestly, they made it a little bit more simpler here, which I liked. Going more into that, you are going to be unlocking a hub when you're a little bit further in the game. Here you can talk to townsfolk, train a little bit, and you have a blacksmith there. You can salvage all of the different loot you're going to be getting, and you're going to be unlocking and equipping new skills and gems into your armors. You can put almost any sort of buff you want into any weapon, and that's what makes things simple. They also give you the option to respec with different loadouts at any time without any sort of consequence. You can load out with various levels, wizardry sets. It saves everything. It's really convenient. So to sum up, this is a great Souls-like. Yeah, it's more grindy like Nioh, of course, for all the loots, but it's to be expected, and they did simplify it a little bit, but it's still late game complex where you're, combining lots of different combinations together. I would say this is a great core experience. Very fun game loop. You're always upgrading, always finding new enemies from bosses. I would say, personally, this is a good difficulty curve as well. People on Steam I saw are really complaining. It's like, oh, the difficulty spike gets crazy on the first boss. I can understand that, and maybe I just have a little bit more experience with this game because I did play the demo. But I feel like once you learn the system, because it is a little bit of a weird system, that spirit bar going up and down, you have the morale, fortitude rank. Once you learn that, it becomes really second nature, and you fly through everything, really. You can also play the game solo or with an AI group or even with friends, 3 people total. This is an excellent game, except the mentioned PC issues. I would say play it on console for a more stable experience, or like me, I guess you can play it on, PC and just turn the graphics down. And that's it for my little review here of Wo Long Fallen Dynasty. I would say pick it up. It's a really good game, except, be careful of the grindiness if that's not your thing, even though it is Souls-like and the PC performance stuff. But that's it. If you guys like, enjoy, subscribe, etc., please do all of that stuff and head on over to my secondary channel, MabiVsGames 2, for my Let's Play of the game going on, and come by Twitch where I'm streaming it all. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.